Hello, my name is Thiago Tempo, and in this video I'll talk about how to write your own classes using TypeScript. I'll start by showing an example of a simple class using TypeScript. If you have used other languages that support classes, you'll see that there's nothing really different. We start declaring the name of the class. Next, in this case, there are two properties, title and year. Notice that I also specified their types. We also have a constructor for the class, and here we have to use the keyword constructor. In other languages like C# or Java, the constructor has the name of the class. In TypeScript, as in JavaScript, we have to use the keyword constructor, but the idea is the same. The constructor here expects two arguments, and they are both typed. And of course, I'm assigning the values passed as arguments to the respective properties. Finally, I have a method that will print the values of an instance of this class to the console. To instantiate this class, it's also very simple. I just need to use the keyword new and pass the arguments the constructor is expecting. Note that a constructor is not required. If I comment these lines, the class will still be correct. Of course, now I should not pass any parameters when instantiating the class. In this case, it is as if there was an empty constructor with no arguments. A class can inherit from another class. So let's say I have another class called Awarded Movie. This class has a property awards which will keep the numbers of awards won by this movie. Of course, an awarded movie also has a title and a release year, but I don't need to replicate this here and I want to reuse the ones declared in the movie class. What I have to do is change the awarded class so it will extend the movie class. Now, if I try to create an instance of this class, we see that we need to pass a title and an year to the constructor. That's because the constructor of the basic class, in this case movie, has only one constructor and it expects those arguments. What if I wanted to create a new constructor on the awarded movie class that expects the number of awards? I have to write a constructor that expects all three arguments, and inside the constructor I have to call super and pass the two parameters needed by the base class. Then I can initialize the awards property. It's important to note that when a class inherits from another and it has a constructor, as it is the case here, before using the keyword this, I have to call super. If I rearrange these lines in a way that super is called after I try to use the keyword this, the compiler won't let me. One other thing we can do with inheritance is override methods. What I mean by this is I can have another method in this class called print_to_console. Then the first thing I'll do is call super.print_to_console. So the title and the release year of the movie will be printed, and next I'll log the number of awards of the movie. Now, if I create an instance of this class and call print_to_console, I can see that all properties were logged to the console. Properties declared this way are public by default. This means that they can be viewed and changed outside of the class. If you don't want that, you can add a modifier when declaring a property. The private modifier will make the property only accessible within the class itself. We can see that I cannot access it anymore, even from inside the awarded movie class. I can only access the public one, but not the private. If I want to make it accessible to child classes, I must use the protected modifier. The protected modifier allows the property to be accessed within the class and by classes that inherit from it, but not outside of the class. Creating properties and initializing them in the constructor is so common that TypeScript has a shorter version for that. If I add a modifier in front of the arguments of a constructor, TypeScript will understand that this argument is in fact a property, and it will automatically initialize them. So this code can be rewritten in this way, and they are both equivalent. Note that the modifier can be any of the three we talked about: public, protected, and private. But TypeScript has another modifier, one that is called read-only. Read-only properties can only be assigned in the constructor or if they were declared explicitly during their declaration. As you may have guessed, if you try to change a read-only property outside of the constructor or after its initialization, the compiler won't let you. By the way, an argument in the constructor declared as read-only is by default also public. So if you want to change that, let's say for instance you want to make it protected, you can add the protected modifier before the read-only modifier. The access modifiers can also be used in front of methods. So if I wanted this method to be private, I just needed to add the private modifier in front of it. Another important feature of classes in TypeScript is that we can declare a class abstract. An abstract class is a class that cannot be instantiated directly. The only way to do so is through other classes that inherit from it. For instance, if I make the movie class an abstract class, now I cannot new up an instance of this movie class. I only can do that through one of the classes that inherit from it. This might be useful when you have different classes that share some code, and that code can be in a base class, but the base class itself does not have a reason to exist on its own. It's just a central place to share code among other classes. This is of course a very simple example and the movie class might be useful, but I think you got the idea. Finally, a class can have static methods and properties. Static methods are created with the modifier static in front of it and can only access other static members of the class. To call this method, all I have to do is call awardedMovie.createDefault. Static properties work in the same way, but instead of a method, they are properties shared among all instances of the class. And that's it for today. Thanks for watching.